All right, well, how about lists of things? I have 3 paragraphs here, but let's do this. Let me go back to VS Code. I'm going to copy this code so I have a starting point. I'm going to create a new file called, say, list.html. Here, I'm going to copy paste. I'm going to change my title to be list, just for clarity. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this whole body, because let's move away from these massive paragraphs and keep it simpler for now. If I want to have a list of things, for instance, if you haven't seen these already, a computer scientist, when they're fishing for just some arbitrary, meaningless words, they often use foo, bar, and baz, just as their go-to, just like a mathematician might use x, y, z for variables. So foo, bar, and baz are on 3 separate lines. And maybe this is like my to-do list or my shopping list. But you can probably imagine if I go back to my other tab, go back to the index, I now see my new file, list.html. But it's probably going to look wrong. I think I'm just going to say, yeah, foo, bar, baz, all in one breath, if you will. They're not on new lines. And you can try to fight this. Like, you can be like, really want to put some line breaks there, go back and reload. It's still not going to make any change. And this is Chrome being a little ridiculous. Even though we've specified it's English, it's done this for years. It thinks it's in Arabic for some reason. But so be it. Sometimes Chrome and real-world software is buggy, although probably inspired by these nonsensical words here. Foo, bar, and baz are all on the same line. How do I want to fix this? Well, I can do this in a few ways. I could make them paragraphs, but they're not really paragraphs. They're a list. So I'm going to use a different tag instead. I'm going to create, for instance, an unordered list using the UL tag, open and close. Inside of that, I'm going to use the list item tag, LI, and I'm going to say foo. Inside of another tag, I'm going to say bar. Inside of a third tag, open and close, I'm going to say baz. So it's getting a little verbose, but it's still relatively succinct. LI is all you need type for list item. UL is all you need type for unordered list. So there's some shorthand syntax here that's adopted. If I now reload, you're going to see a so-called unordered list, like not sorted, which means by convention to show it as bullets, though it could be displayed in different ways visually as well. If you actually change your mind and you realize, oh, I'd really like to number this, well, you could obviously like just add 1 and 2 and 3. But that's going to get annoying, especially if the list grows. You want to change something, insert something in the middle, then you have to reorder it. I mean, we're using computers here. They can do this for us. So we can change the UL to, any guesses? OL, maybe, for ordered list, which is sort of the opposite here. So let's try changing that to OL. Let me go back to my browser. And I'm just hitting Command R or Control R to reload the page instead of clicking the button every time. Now, I automatically get 1, 2, and 3. And you can even override the aesthetics using different numerables or symbology instead. But that would be perhaps the most common there as well. All right. It's a lot of tags quickly, but any questions on lists, paragraphs, headings, or the like? No? All right. So let me go ahead and propose this here. Let's go ahead and create what we'll call a table. So let me copy and paste this into a new file, code of table.html. And in table.html, let me again rename the title to table. Let me get rid of that ordered list from before. And let me now use a table tag, open and close. This one's a little weird, but inside of a table, you typically have a head of the table. So I'll say, well, let's say the first row. We'll keep this one simple. A table row, or TR. Inside of a table row, you would ideally have columns, but that's not the nomenclature. Instead, you have data. So TD for table data. And let me go ahead and just have the first datum be 1. I'm just going to arbitrarily do 1, 2, 3, just so we have something to play with. And you know what? Just for demonstration's sake, I am going to deliberately copy paste this twice. And I'm just going to manually change the numbers, just so we can see what I'm creating. 7, 8, 9. And then maybe just for good measure, if you're seeing where this is going, let me copy this one more time and give myself a final row with an asterisk, a 0, and a pound sign, if maybe you see where this is going. Let me go back to my other tab. Let me go back to the index. There's my new file, table.html. I'll click that. And while it's not very pretty, I'll zoom in. It's indeed a table of data. I happen to mimic like a telephone keypad, but you could imagine this being much juicier, much more interesting scientific or financial data or the like laid out into these rows, TRs, and these columns, aka table data as well. So we have that ability as well for structured data. Now, of course, the internet has lots of images on it. And in fact, this is all just text. How can we introduce images? Well, let me go ahead and do this. Let me first sort of semi-secretly copy an image file that I brought from earlier, just so we have something to play with. And I have in my account here now an image called harvard.jpg. And I uploaded this semi-secretly a second ago into my account so that I can reference a second file. Let me go ahead and copy this HTML just to save myself some keystrokes. Let me go ahead and do code of image.html. And let me paste that code and hide my terminal window. I'm going to get rid of all of this table as just uninteresting now. We're going to make this even simpler by changing my title to image to keep all these demonstrations separate. And now, if I want to make a web page that, when visited, shows us a picture of Harvard, well, there's an image tag, abbreviated IMG for short. I can specify what the source of that image is. And if my file, a JPEG in this case, is literally in the same folder, I can just say, quote unquote, harvard.jpg. If it's in a folder, I should mention the folder name and a slash or something like that. If the image is on the internet somewhere with a URL, I could also have a whole URL, https:// and then the URL of the image. But I upload it in advance. Now, this is just going to visually display on the screen, but not everyone, of course, can see images. Screen readers might need a bit of assistance, and even search engines might want to analyze the page and know what this is an image of. Now, machine learning and artificial intelligence are maybe getting better, to be fair, at figuring out just by analyzing images what they are, but they're certainly imperfect. I am a human. I know pretty well what I took a photo of, for instance. So maybe what I should do proactively, which would be good for accessibility, is have this alt tag for alternative text, and then literally say like Harvard University, so that someone who can't see or so that a server can actually know with higher probability what it is they're looking at. And I could be even more detailed than just a phrase. I could describe the image as well. All right, let me go back to my index in the second tab. Let me go back and zoom back out. There's my new file, and there's my new JPEG that I quickly uploaded before. I can click now on image.html, and albeit a little overwhelming, that is a really big image of Harvard. Now, apparently, it's too big to fit on the screen, so this isn't the best user experience to have to scroll up. OK, so there's the image. Horrible, horrible design, if you will, at least in terms of my code. But there's going to be ways where I can sort of rein that in and affect the height or the width as well. But for now, it's just deliberately a little overwhelming instead. Now, we can do something a little more fun and topical today, which might be to use a video instead. So let me go ahead here and very quickly grab another file today, which is I brought in advance, and then you might have seen briefly earlier, which is an MP4, an actual video file. And what I'm going to do here, by revealing VS Code again, is I'm going to code a file called video.html. Yet another demonstration here. I'm going to change my title to video, just to keep these things straight. And instead of the image tag, you might imagine using now, indeed, a video tag. And this is a relatively newer tag that has increasing support among browsers, so it's good now to use. And inside of this, the syntax is a little different. You specify, and this is weirdly, annoyingly inconsistent, not src for source. You literally say source. And then in source, you use a source attribute. Horrible design semantically, but like this is what we're stuck with. Halloween.mp4 is the name of the video we upload in advance, made by some of Harvard's digital artists. And the type of this video, so that the browser knows for sure, is video/mp4. That's a so-called content type that you just know or you look up to figure it out. And just so that this is as animated as possible, I'm going to tell the video tag with a few attributes to autoplay. And it turns out that attributes often have key value pairs, whereby it's the key, the attribute name, equals quote unquote some value, just like lang equals quote unquote en for English. But not all attributes need values. In fact, if you read the documentation for HTML's video tag, there's an autoplay attribute where you can literally just say the key and it needs no value. It's just going to mean autoplay. And if you don't want to autoplay, you just omit it altogether. So you don't necessarily need a value on or off. I want the thing to loop just so it keeps going. I want it to be muted so that we don't hear any sound. In fact, there is no sound, but browsers nowadays, for anti-spam and advertising reasons, often will not play a video if it has sound, because it's just kind of obnoxious if you visit a page and all of a sudden your speakers start blaring. So I know this from having read up on this, that I should mute it so that if I want it to actually autoplay for real. And then I'll set the width manually for now to be like 128 pixels across, just from some trial and error earlier. And that width attribute does have a value. Now, I'm being a little a little uptight here by alphabetizing all of my attributes. Not at all necessary. I do it just so I can skim things faster and know if something is there or not. So for me, it's just a matter of style. Let me go back to my other tab, go back to my index, and you'll see two new files again, the MP4 file and video.html. I'll click on the latter. And if I did this well, and I'll unzoom, here we have, thanks to our friends in Harvard, our artistic friends at Harvard, very, like an ooh would help with the drama here. But OK, but we have a very dramatic, nice Halloween type view here as well. So we have videos embedded as well. And suffice it to say, there's ways to embed YouTube videos or Vimeo or other services as well using yet more tags too. But
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد رسولنا النبي الأمي المبعوث رحمة للعالمين خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين نور هذه الأمة وضياؤها وشفيعنا يوم الحساب.